Welcome to the Bookish Bubble, the podcast where we burst the bubble on all things bookish, from influencer content and new releases to controversial topics and trends.
Hi, I'm your host Phoebe, and I run Get This Girl a Book.
And I'm your host Jessica from JessicaReads.books.
And today we are discussing the books that we think are overhyped.
Let's get into it. But before we get to that, Phoebe, what are you currently reading and are you enjoying it?
I'm currently reading The Stolen Hours by Swan. It's part of a Hebridean quartet, all set in the Outer Hebrides, which I find really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's also set in the 1930s, so it's that thing of
a
little bit more historical romance without it being Edwardian or anything too far back, which I quite like. I'm on the second book currently, and it's really interesting because it essentially is set over the same series of months.
As in, like, they overlap? They're running...
Yeah. So each book is overlapping on the timeline from different perspectives and, like, vastly different experiences, which is really, really interesting. So I'm really liking it at the moment. I think Swan has a really lovely way of discussing lifestyle on the Outer Hebrides without it coming across as too romanticized. She tries to keep it very realistic, which I actually quite like.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm reading at the minute. What about you?
So I'm currently reading Heavenly Bodies by Imani Erriu, and this is one of those books that got a lot of hype on BookTok, ironically, given the topic of today's podcast. It had a lot of hype when it came out, I think, earlier this year, and so I had slight FOMO. People were, really raving about it, and I've been getting into my romantasy era this year, so I thought that was the perfect book to pick up next. I am about 20% of the way in, and I am not convinced so far. I think I'm actually 27% of the way in, and I was expecting more. I have considered DNFing it, but I think I need to give it a little bit more. I've just found that the world building is quite lacking. And I know when you start a new book, you're a bit confused at first. You don't know what's going on. But I feel like I'm not learning anything about the world or how it works. It's very sparse, but in the way that makes me think there is no way that it works. Like, it's not set out. It doesn't feel purposeful that I've not been told this information. But I've not given up on it yet because there are some, like, glimmers of, like, really good moments where I'm like, oh, I can see the potential.
But I almost find that worse sometimes of when you're like, oh, but it's so close to being something good. But yeah, look, I'm hoping it's going to turn around for you.
Me too. As I said before, I've had so many DNFs recently. Or not so many, but just so many for me. Because, like, I do DNF, but not like...
But you're not a religious DNFer.
No,
you read 100 pages and then it's just off. Like,
no.
You try quite hard with them.
And so I've just, not been on a great streak, but I'm giving it a chance. Everyone loves it. I've seen rave reviews for it. People love it, say it's such a good romantasy book. So I'm giving it more of a chance. I'm going to give it another 50 pages or so, and we will see.
Well, I mean, fingers crossed for the next 50 pages. It's going to have to really turn it around.
Or maybe it'll end up on episode 2 of Overhyped Books.
Quite possibly.
But I think that brings us to the first question, which is, what do we mean when we say a book is overhyped? Like,
I think it's a really interesting one because I do, and we will get into, like, the types of overhype, but I think for me, when something is overhyped, my thought process is it feels like all spheres are pushing that same book, when it's not just something that's popped up in, like, my little niche of TikTok space or my little, like, Bookstagram space, but it feels like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it does get to that stage sometimes where you're scrolling through videos and you do feel like every third video is
about this new release that everyone's loving.
And I think that is something as well. It generally, at the time that it comes out, that is when it experiences the hype.
Yeah.
Or immediately after release.
Yeah. I think for me, it's a book that you cannot avoid because it is everywhere. Every corner you turn, every video you scroll, it feels like that book is popping up. And overhyped because then when you read it, it doesn't live up to expectations.
Yes. And I think it's important to note that it's the expectations of its genre.
Yes, of course.
Because I do think sometimes books get pulled into the overhyped category where we're not actually analysing those books with the same criteria we would use of something with a different genre. So I think that is something as well. If we can't say something is overhyped when we are not aligning it to the proper genre components.
Yeah, and the expectations. No, I agree. Because I think sometimes people, they complain that a book doesn't have a certain thing, but that's not a category of the the genre. You know, or they'll complain that they didn't like that the book had a happy ever after, but it's a romance book. Of course it's going to have a happy ever after.
Yes.
Like, you do have to look at it through the lens of what is expected from this genre and what is this book trying to do as well. I think that's the question with every book. It's so individual. You know, you can't compare a, you know, literary fiction, historical, like really deep, in-depth book with a lighthearted romance.
Yes.
And they could both be 5 stars. And that doesn't mean they're comparable, because they're not. But it's like, what are they trying to achieve and have they achieved it?
Yes.
So yeah, these books, they didn't, basically.
Yeah, to a degree. And we will kind of talk about the types of overhype, because I think sometimes we align overhype with an author rather than a book itself.
Yeah. There's definitely a couple of authors that I think as a whole that they are overhyped authors.
100%. I think Julia Quinn has dominated kind of the romance historical space with Bridgerton, and it is such a specific niche style of historical romance writing that she's going for, but it has really then meant that anyone who goes into that historical romance space, they are automatically then kind of pushed towards Julia Quinn. And to be honest, I don't know what everyone was doing in the Regency era, but according to Julia Quinn, everyone was a duke and every single family had 7 children, all surviving.
And that might be the most unrealistic part of it all.
It might be. So that's one of the types of overhype I think I have, where it's the author themselves are overhyped, either because they don't have the depth of book, as in book catalogue, or they are just kind of thrown out as the key component of that genre.
And I think on that note, the first author that comes to my mind as an overhyped author who gets held up as the pinnacle of the genre, and I personally don't agree with, has to be Freida McFadden. I know, controversial opinion, but
And how did the Bookish Bubble get cancelled? 2 words, done.
So Freida McFadden is often introduced as the great place to start for thrillers. And I can see, if you've never read a thriller before, I can see how she could be a great place to start. They're quite simple stories, they're easy to read, they're fast paced. However, if you have read thrillers before, and I'm someone who grew up reading thrillers, my parents love thrillers. So as a teenager, I read a ton of them. They do not live up to the standard set by other books within the genre. I don't believe they are the pinnacle. I find that they are quite predictable. So for context, I read 2 of her books. I read The Locked Door and The Housemaid. Obviously, The Housemaid is widely regarded as her most popular book, and some people would say her best book. And they're fine, but they're very simplistic. And my problem with her books, or at least from the 2 I've seen, is that she does not know how to foreshadow. So we had opposite problems, I found, in these 2 books. With The Locked Door, you got to the end of the book and it was like, wow, I could have never guessed that was going to happen, because there was not a single clue leading up to it. And I won't say why, because I don't want to give any spoilers for someone who may want to read it. But there was no possible way you could have guessed the ending, because you just were missing key information.
Right.
Whereas with The Housemaid, I had sort of the opposite issue, where there was foreshadowing, but it was really poorly done. So there's a part at the beginning of the book where the character's internal monologue basically just says something. I won't give spoilers again, so I will be vague, but she says something and it's like, oh, wow, it'd be crazy if that happened. Well, how silly of me to think it. And she's just telling you what's going to happen. And it does happen exactly how she thought in her head. And it was like one of those lines where no normal person would ever think what she did. And I'm being very vague because I don't want to give spoilers. But it was just 2 examples of the author not understanding foreshadowing. And for me, foreshadowing is such a key component of the thriller genre, because I want to get to the end of a thriller book and be like, wow, I didn't guess that, but I should have done, because now I see all the breadcrumbs.
Yes.
Whereas if I got to the end of it and thought, wow, I could never guess that because you didn't tell me anything, or wow, I completely saw that coming because you told me it was going to happen in plain, like, black and white writing. For me, that's not a good sign of a good thriller. So I think she's overhyped. People do go wild for all of her releases, and I don't think they stand up to the rest of the genre. But I do think if you've never read thrillers before, I can see them being a good entry point as like a entry-level thriller.
And that's the thing as well. Like, we have to really think about the fact that as much as we who are really part of that space might get annoyed by certain things or infuriated by overhyped authors or overhyped books, there is a place for it.
Yeah.
And it is often as an entry point.
Absolutely. And again, everyone has different tastes. So, you know, the reasons I don't like them might be the reason someone does. Like, maybe they do want a really easy reading thriller. And that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I don't think they should be held up as the pinnacle of the genre. It just makes me think that people are not as well read in the genre, which is why they're good entry level, but maybe not
I think
otherwise.
Yeah, I think another component to the overhyped books and like the different types of overhyped books that we have is also the overhyped book that is very much part of the booktok mythos of books that have become such booktok books. And then it feels like if you haven't read them, you are not a part of that space. You then read them and you're like, but why?
Yeah, it does feel like there's a set of books that are almost like, the requirement on the form to join BookTok.
Yes.
You need to stamp off that you've read, I don't know, Beach Read by Emily Henry, Akatar, which I've not read.
Rebecca Yarros as well. Like there is definitely a group of books that it feels like you cannot escape from there.
Yeah.
I would say Anna Juan as well as like her collections of books are very much
the Twisted series.
Yes. So all of that I would say is definitely a thing. For me, and you're gonna hate me, it's Divine Rivals. I was so disappointed with that read. Like I think I ended up rating it 2 stars.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I rated it 4.5.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Overhyped and had very different expectations going into it than what was there. I think as well, there were elements of the world building. I thought the world itself was so unique in how it had been put forward and how certain like elements had certain almost magical abilities and whatever, like the fantasy elements of it. I was like, yes, I get this. But there was no follow through with those fantasy elements, which infuriated me to no end.
Right.
Because then I'm kind of looking at going, oh, it's almost like A Winter's Promise, which is a very similar style of world building.
Right.
But you haven't had that follow through and progression, which really annoyed me. It then also just felt like the third act. A lot of what you're saying with the foreshadowing as well. I could see a lot of things coming.
Right.
And then also a lot of the decisions that the characters were making in the space of like maybe 3 pages. So we're talking 750 words.
Yeah.
That progression just was happening at a rate of knots that I was like, I don't know about you, but I don't choose major life events in my life with as much flippancy as these characters are doing. And I get it's in a book, it's not real life, but it infuriated me.
Yeah.
Because then I got to the end of the book and I was like, oh, what a shame that happened. Oh, the trauma. Like,
yeah,
it felt nothing to me.
That's fair. Whereas I love the writing. The descriptions of war and how brutal it is felt very realistic, as I do think in a lot of, especially fantasy books, but any books in general that cover war as a topic, they really almost romanticize it.
Oh, yes.
And this, like, it was brutal. And it showed the destruction and the devastation it had. And I thought that was done very well. But I can appreciate completely, like, why there'd be elements you wouldn't like.
And to be honest, well, if it was a book that was set in war consistently the whole way through, and we almost found out about elements of the world through flashbacks or through other structural points, I'd completely agree. I think the war was done really, really well.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I feel like there wasn't enough of that in it to justify the sheer amount of praise and hype it gets on different platforms.
So that's kind of touching on 2 different types of overhype. And I think a third one that needs to be mentioned is when you have a book that is heavily pushed by publishers, it's, a lead title, a lot of marketing for it, it's everywhere, that ends up having very little follow through in that everyone talks about it when it first comes out because, it's a big release. And then it kind of dies away into nothing. And I think the first one that comes to mind, and I'm sure it came to mind for both of us, and I'm sure everyone else as well, Silver Elite.
Yes.
A lot of people were talking about it, mostly because of the drama of apparently how bad it was. I have not read it. I don't think you have either.
No, I read the first chapter in a bookshop and I was like, I'm done.
So there's a lot of talk there, but even another one that came to my mind was Butter, that I think was the Waterstone book of the year last year. And I've actually only ever really seen negative reviews for it, I think. But it was everywhere. And I think, again, it's because it was a big marketing push. There was a lot of money put into it and behind it. And then it's not really stuck because people didn't really like it. So it kind of not dropped off the face of the earth, but it dropped off the social media platforms in the bookish space.
Relatively quickly.
Yeah, relatively quickly. And I think that's a different type of overhype.
And I think it's also then the overhype that we see in people's like TBRs of massive TBRs. And then it's a book that you're only really seeing it come back through that TBR platform of like, oh, these are books that have been on my TBR for a year.
Yeah, and they've never actually picked them up because you buy it when the hype's going crazy and then the hype drops off and you realise that actually you're not that interested in it.
Yes.
Which I think we're all guilty of doing that.
Oh, 100% Butter is in my TBR cart. And
is it?
Yeah.
It was one that I wanted and never got around to buying, and now I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, I was at an event in Chichester down south and picked it up because I was with a bookish friend and they were like, oh yeah, picked it up with them. And then, it has sat on my TBR cart for the last 12 months.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
But I think from that then, we have both prepared lists of some books that we think are overhyped. And now, I mean, Divine Rivals, I know that's one you've already mentioned, but yeah, we've created a list. So Phoebe, do you want to go first and tell me what book do you think is overhyped?
I am so going to get cancelled for this. I'm fully aware that most of the things I'm going to say on this is probably going to get me cancelled. I'm actually going to start with a author that I think is severely overhyped.
Okay.
As part of my list. And it is the author of It Ends With Us, Colleen Hoover.
Fair.
I just think the amount of marketing that goes in, the amount of kind of publishing push that goes into it, the amount of push from people, and then also the backlash of what is discussed and how some certain aspects are romanticized.
Yeah.
One, it's problematic for me, but two, I just think it's overhyped. The amount of people that I've seen say that Verity is a 5-star read, and I'm like, cool, next.
Verity falls into the same category as Freida McFadden to me. I have read Verity. No, it's just in terms of the thriller genre, it's not up there for me, as in like a good example of a well-written thriller.
No. And I think people can get into the genres through those books, but honestly, if she is named as part of the book or if she is kind of co-authored or involved in it in any way, I'm immediately like, I need to stay away from this hype train.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And I do think maybe she's had her moment a bit. Like, I personally don't really see anyone talking about her anymore.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just because I've curated my feed. Yeah. And I don't think she's had a book out in a while. I'm not sure. Again, maybe it slipped me by. But I feel like maybe she's one who's had her moment. But I mean, hey, watch her come out with a book next year and it's an instant bestseller or something.
Yeah,
who knows?
100%.
But no, I agree with you on that one.
And just as like a little bit of a side note, we have done these lists completely separately. So I'm actually quite interested to see if there's any overlap between the two.
Yeah. Like, I have no idea what you're going to put on your list.
No. What's on it?
So my first one is a book I don't think you've read or anything, but it's Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings.
I haven't read it, but completely agree. I have seen that sucker everywhere.
Literally everywhere. So the biggest thing for me is that basically nothing happens. It was such a boring book. Like, there was hardly any plot at all. And I get having a character-focused book. However, the problem was with that the MMC is an awful person with zero redeeming characteristics. He is not someone I could root for. And I did actually like Magnolia, which I've heard some people say they didn't like her. I quite liked her as a character. I thought she was quite funny or like relatable in some aspects. Like, she's a bit of a spoilt brat, but I still kind of liked an element of her personality. I can't necessarily pinpoint it. But BJ, who is the main love interest in this, he's awful. And like, I can't root for them to be together, which then all of a sudden, what's the point?
Yeah.
Especially when there's no plot. It was so dull.
But isn't that another case of it's not living up to the components of the genre?
Yeah.
Like, your MMC should be, to a degree, lovable. Even if they're morally grey, there should be an aspect to it that as you're writing them for your reader can see that they are lovable.
The other thing with that book is that she kept listing the clothes that everyone was wearing constantly. Like, she would see you and be like, Gucci 2013 red jumper with the details. Like, in that level of detail.
No.
And like, I don't know fashion. All right. Like, I'm not a fashion person. I definitely don't know designer stuff. I don't know what any of it looks like, unless it's like the, I don't know, classic Gucci flat bag. Like, yeah, I know
or the tote bag, which literally has the tote bag.
Yeah. So like, like, it means nothing to me. So I don't care what someone's reading, because like, at the end of the day, I'm going to picture a character how I want to be honest. Yeah. Almost regardless of the description, especially when it comes to clothes. I have never once seen a description of someone's clothes really, and it's stuck in my mind what they're wearing. If it's normal clothes. If it's in a fantasy, maybe, and it's like armor or something. But if it's normal clothes, I don't care. And it was like every single time she saw someone. And I was like, oh my God, I don't care about this. And like, if you love fashion, can see why you'd like it. And it is filled with drama, but I didn't like the characters enough. And there wasn't enough of a story for it to carry me through.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have told me that it gets better after book one. I just have to read the second book.
No, but that's a problem within itself, because I'm sorry, like, there should be something about the first book that keeps you in.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that you have to get on to book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5.
I know. And I've seen certain series where people are like, oh, you just got to get to book 5. Book 5? No, I'm not spending that much time. I've got so much to read.
And as well, there is so much good literature, so little time.
Yeah, exactly.
Why am I spending what could be, say, 2,500 pages to get to a good book when I could pick up something on the TBR shelf and 50 pages I'm hooked.
Yeah. Exactly. Not enough time to be reading books you're not enjoying.
No.
But yeah, for that one, that really didn't live up to the hype for me. And I do already own book 2 because I bought them together as a set. So maybe one day I'll give it a try, but it's definitely...
She says with a grimace.
And also I read it like a year and a half ago and I've never picked up book 2. So am I realistically going to read it? Probably not. But that is my first overhyped book.
Yeah. Honestly, all of these are ones that people are going to hate me for. But the next one on my list is Emily Henry's Book Lovers.
Oh, okay.
I
thought you were going to say Beach Read.
I never got that far. I was a one Emily Henry and done.
Oh, see, Book Lovers is my favorite of hers, but I wasn't that bothered by Beach Read.
Yeah, I felt like there was something so lacking in this story, and I also felt like it was trying to be almost like a Gilmore Girls, but put into narrative perspective.
Right.
And it's just not. Things like there was town meetings involved in the book, and I was like, well, this doesn't translate well onto page. This is not the intended medium for this story.
Right. Do you think it would almost be better as like a TV series?
Oh, 100%.
Right.
It would have been a really good TV series that goes through the different kind of subplots and everything else, and you've got those quirky side characters, and like it would have worked really well for that format. It doesn't work well for the novel.
Right.
And I just think that is a whole kind of like booktok mythos that everyone gets around of ranking those books and which one's better and which book boyfriends would you like to have in real life. And I'm like, there are better book boyfriends out there than these characters.
Yeah. No, I think I always say I like Emily Henry's books, and I do. I've read 3 of them. So I've read Book Lovers, Beach Read, and The People We Meet on Vacation, or You and Me on Vacation, I think it's called in the UK. And I liked them. And I say I'm a fan of her books, and then I've never read any of the newer ones. So I bought Happy Place. I've never read it. I have Funny Story on my Kindle, which was only a 99p Kindle deal, so, not much there. And I don't know what the name of her newest one was. Yeah. So I think it's just one of those things where I do like her work, but there's clearly something that's holding me back from reading them. I just never find myself drawn to them.
Yeah. And again, so much good romance, so much diverse romance that you can go into. Why am I going to pick up something that is not fitting the box of what I need?
Yeah. But that's definitely going to be a controversial one.
Yeah.
People are going to disagree with you there.
Yeah. I'm pitchforks. I see pitchforks in my future. It will be Salem Witch Trials featuring Phoebe in the middle.
If you look over the hill, you can see, the glow of you can see the glow of those torches coming over.
Oh, 100%. I think the tar and feathers is starting to be like put together to just whack me.
Well, it was nice knowing you.
Yeah, it was nice knowing you too. But yeah, I think that's probably one of my more controversial picks.
Probably.
But yeah, what's your second? Are you going to do a controversial one as well?
I absolutely am.
Oh, this is going to be controversial, isn't it?
I think I might be able to beat you for a more controversial take.
This video was not meant to be controversial takes, just by the way. This was not what this podcast episode was going for, but we're just going there anyway.
A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins.
Ooh.
The Hunger Games prequel.
Oh, you and me, we're going to be drenched in tar and feathers.
We are going down together.
Yep. Oh, God.
Yeah, I was so excited for that book. Because I love The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games, the original trilogy, loved them, read them as a teen, amazing. And I was so excited, and it just didn't meet expectations.
Oh my God, we are on the Titanic.
We are.
And both of us are Jack. No one is Rose on the
we're both
going down.
So the thing for me, the biggest thing was that it was way too long. It was like 500 pages or something like that. And the story was very badly paced. It really lagged in the middle, and it was at least 100 to 200 pages too long.
Okay, fair. I get that because I have a similar thing with romance books that are too long. I think there is a cutoff with some stories.
Yeah, and it just felt like the original books felt more concise, where this had a lot of kind of random filler, and like that, I think that's why it lagged in the pacing.
Interesting.
Because there were certain parts of the book which like I was actually bored. Like I wasn't interested. And there's 2 different parts to the story. I don't know if have you read Ballad?
Yeah.
So there's 2 different parts to the story for those who don't know. And they were so disjointed. I didn't think they flowed together at all. And I almost feel like they would have been better as 2 separate books or choose one. Which you couldn't choose one, to be fair. You couldn't choose the second one. Again, no spoilers. But it was just, they were disjointed. It was really disjointed. And I really like certain elements of the book. Like, I love learning more about the history of Panem and, you know, how we kind of got to the point that in the Hunger Games, and seeing the game makers side of things as well. That was so interesting. But it just fell flat for me. And the romance felt completely unrealistic.
Look, fair.
I didn't believe it at all. And it went from I fancy her to she's the love of my life in seconds with no explanation. And it didn't seem to match his character.
Well, yeah, he is very much a Machiavellian, like, character there of...
And I get that maybe that's part of the point, but like it just felt really unbelievable. And I found all the characters dislikable. And I know he's meant to be dislikable. But even Lucy Gray, who I'm almost certain you're meant to like, I didn't care about her. And if I'm not invested in their story, like, why do I care about reading their story? Yeah. And so it's the point where, like, if I reread the series, I'd consider skipping that one. I probably will read it at some point in the future because of those Panem nuggets of information. But it really didn't know what type. I think I rated it 3.5 stars. Ooh. So it's not like I've not like slated it.
No.
But it was not worth the hype.
Interesting. Yes. Tar and feathers. I see tar and feathers in our future.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go into my final one.
Go on.
I don't think this book was overhyped as much as I think the series is overhyped.
Okay.
Before the coffee gets cold.
I had that on my list.
Yes. I think the book itself, not a problem.
Yeah.
It's structurally, it's a very specific type of reading experience.
The first book is the best. And then it goes downhill drastically.
And that's the thing. I think the concept was great. I don't think it needed, 4 additional?
I think there's 5 now. Because I was looking for my research when I put it on my own list. There's 5. I've read 4 of them. Don't ask me why I kept reading them. I rated the first one 4 stars, the second one 3 stars, the third one 2 stars, and the fourth one 2 stars. Why did I keep reading them? I don't know. I think they were library books, so.
But that's the thing. I think the concept is really good. And like the whole idea of you go into a coffee shop and you can have a conversation or you can relive a part of your time is really important and really cool and very different and subversive, but you don't need that many books on that one concept. And once you get to a certain point, then that concept is going down the drain.
Yeah, it's a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
And I found that they lacked a bit of depth. So particularly in, I think it's book 3 and 4. So it's like Before Your Memories Fade and Before We Say Goodbye or something to those effects. And they should be so emotional, heart-wrenching. Like the first book has a story on dementia, which was, I think, my favorite story of all of them.
Yeah.
It was so well written, and I'm pretty sure I cried when I read that. So I was thinking going into Before Your Memories Fade, which sounds like dementia and, you know, saying goodbye to people, and Before We Say Goodbye, it should be heartbreaking and the most beautiful, touching stories. And they just lacked something. I just didn't connect with them, and there was so much potential there because I think it was a creative idea, and it just didn't quite hit the mark. And I do think maybe it's something to do with translations as well. I'm sure if it was read in its original language, it might hit better.
Yes.
So I will give it some benefit of the doubt there, but they went downhill for me.
And I think it could have been almost much more prolific if it was just the one book.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah, that was the final one on my list. I'm stunned that it was also on your list.
It was,
yeah. Yeah, there's something about it that just rubs me the wrong way.
And my final one, if we're going with some of BookTok's favorite romance authors, continuing on that theme, Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I don't know if you've read it.
Look, I haven't read that one yet, but I might get this. I have started an Abby Jimenez book. It is currently in like my currently reads pile, which is like 8 books on it. It's ridiculous.
Nice.
But it's in that book pile. I'm 50 pages in and I do not think I want to read another page.
Yeah, that's fair. And like I just found with that book that I thought it was quite well written. I do respect that. I think Abby Jimenez has got a lot of talent as an author, but these were 2 characters that were so emotionally mature. They were so mature. I loved it. They could talk about everything. Except their feelings. They could talk about everything. They talked about their mental health, their background, their struggles, but not their feelings for each other. And like it was the miscommunication trope, which is never my favorite trope, but I do appreciate that it has a place in life because in real life miscommunication happens.
Yes.
But you had these 2 emotionally mature characters who could talk about everything, and it didn't fit them. And never before have I wanted to physically chuck a book across the room. Genuinely, I considered it was so infuriating because they talked about everything except their feeling, and they had this like huge miscommunication, And it was ridiculous, and it like went on, and it was so dramatic for no reason. It did not fit the characters at all.
And just as a little bit of a side tangent, Jess is a very mellow, lovely, would not hurt a fly human being. So the fact that she has thrown or considered throwing a book across the room is quite out of character for you.
Yeah, it is. But that book, it just made me like infuriated. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, no, I've had a similar like wanting to just chuck the book out the window with Alex Astor's Lightlark.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no.
Did you finish it or did you do an effort?
I finished it because of like it was a little bit like torture of
oh my god,
of just to survive is an accomplishment enough.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. So but it was torturous to read.
Ouch, that is a scathing review.
The sheer amount of gossamer fabric that is mentioned in one book is ridiculous. Also, the Milky Moon.
What?
The moons being compared to eggs and milk and weird things. I just like mixed metaphors.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of books could be massively improved with another round of strong edits.
Yes. And I think just a little bit of personal reflection.
Okay.
that might be the thing. Just take a beat, have a moment, breathe some air, and then reread the book for a final time. And on that incredibly uplifting and positive note, that's all from us for this week. So thank you so much for listening, and we will see you for our next episode.
We upload every Wednesday, so please subscribe and follow along. You can find us on all the usual social media platforms, so YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and this podcast can be found on all of your favorite podcast platforms.
If you want to catch up with us on any of our personals, you can catch up with Jessica on jessicareads.books, and you can catch up with me on Get This Girl on Book on TikTok or Instagram.
Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon.
Bye!